Good evening and welcome to the fourth session of Just 20 Minutes. Today we are talking about what is the real issue. What is the real issue? This is a very important thing that we need to understand before we go ahead and find solutions for any problem or an issue. However, it will be useful to understand actually how does this make a difference or what difference can it make? Let me show you some examples. The first is a case of the room service guarantee. Okay, I used to work in Bangalore, and one of my clients was a very large five-star hotel, and competition was catching up in Bangalore. So the general manager of the hotel came up with this very interesting idea of offering a room service guarantee. Now, what was this guarantee? Room service in 15 minutes, or you pay nothing. Whatever you order, whatever the bill amount might be, if the delivery was not done in 15 minutes, you pay nothing. It's on the house. Okay, that was his concept. Very interesting, very powerful. Now, the interesting thing that happened is that the entire hotel geared up to make sure that this was successful. The program was successful. So, the staff, the room service order desk, everybody geared up in such a way that things will be delivered exactly within 15 minutes. This went on very well for about 10 to 15 days. However, the general manager friend of mine, he was a little disappointed. He said that, look, there is not even a murmur from any customer that something like this is happening. We have gone out of the way to do this, and our guys are really doing a very good job of delivering things within 15 minutes. Not one guest has noticed the way in which the service is being rendered. Nobody has had any comments or observations they have shared with me so far. And many of my friends have stayed in the hotel during this period. Okay, so we began wondering as to why this was happening. What is the real reason why people are not coming back with their comments? So we were grappling with this what is really happening kind of detective work. Nothing came up in our discussions, and we were looking at various ways, and we also improved the communication on the subject. So the more tent cards were kept, and there were stickers on the mirror and lift posters, all of that. But still, no comments from any of the guests, and the 15 minutes guarantee was continuing. People were delivering well, yet no comments. In in the meantime, the general manager had a minor accident, and he was homebound. He had a fracture, and he was a kind of a wheelchair. So I went to see him at home, and we were having a chat, and then one thing led to another. And then he talked about his small little accident, and I asked him about the hospital expenses and so on. And he said, no, actually, that was not such a major problem because the insurance took care of it, and we are quite comfortable with that. That's not a problem at all. Okay. Now, as we started discussing this entire business of medical insurance, or even the concept of insurance, it dawned on us that insurance is a powerful concept, and you can feel the benefit of insurance as a concept only when something goes wrong. As we talked about it, suddenly it was like a eureka moment for the two of us. What was really happening in the case of the 15-minute room service guarantee was that nobody experienced the entire concept when something went wrong. Then he talked about it further, and we said, how do we actually create a situation when something actually goes wrong, and therefore the guest can feel the benefit? So when he got better, he came back to the hotel, and then he worked out a system. Every day he would, along with his senior manager, sit down and look at the guest register and choose a couple of names from the list, and then said that, look, whatever he orders, make sure you don't deliver it in 15 minutes. Go and deliver it in the 16th minute or the 17th minute. And when they ask for the bill, say it's on the house because we delayed it by 2 minutes. This started happening. In fact, a very senior corporate manager from one of the multinationals was staying in the hotel, and it so happened that he called some of his friends, for joining him for a dinner, a kind of a private dinner arranged in his room, and the entire thing was delivered 2 minutes late on purpose. And when the gentleman asked for the bill, the steward just turned around and says, "It's on the house, sir." Compliments the general manager. And the guest asked why, and he said, "No, this is under the room service guarantee. Unfortunately, we delayed by 2 minutes, so there is no bill. It's on the house." That made a huge difference. The gentleman immediately called the general manager first thing in the morning and said, "You guys must be going crazy. How can you handle this? You go broke?" And he talked to several other friends. And this scheme moved further. The point here was that the pursuit of what is the real issue can actually open up several new ways of looking at the issue, and therefore, arising out of that can give us an opportunity to achieve our objective. Here is another case. Would you go for a cancer checkup? A lot of us are educated people. We understand today what is the issue on cancer and cancer treatment. We know probably of people who have survived cancer. They are cancer survivors. Yet, I think we all hesitate to go for a cancer checkup. This was a situation when the Indian Cancer Society briefed Ogilvy and Mather in the 80s to create a cancer campaign for driving checkup for cancer. They had briefed the agency saying, "We want an educational campaign to drive cancer checkups." So the agency created a very powerful campaign based on all the facts that were available to them, and communicating the facts with the readers, saying these are the things that can go wrong if you don't go for a checkup. Therefore, you must go for a checkup. In the pre-test, the campaign failed, in spite of the fact that the advertising was stunning looking. All the facts were very powerfully put together and communicated, and so on and so forth. And then, when this research came up for review, my former boss and mentor, Mani Iyer, who was then the managing director of Ogilvy, he went through the whole thing and he said, "Are we not overlooking the obvious?" And we were quite puzzled why he said that. And then he said that, "Look, what seems to be happening is that our campaign is reaffirming the fears that people already have. They know all the things. They may not know the exact facts, but they know that cancer is can result in death if you don't take care of it. But this campaign is not really helping them in any way to make up their mind." So then we started debating this entire issue. When I say when we, I wasn't there, but the team there started debating the real issue, saying, what is the real issue? Why are people not coming? And then they came up with an interesting thought. They said, what will move people or motivate people to go for a checkup is hope. Hope that actually they can get over cancer, fight it, and lead a normal life, as opposed to the fear that was being reconfirmed or reaffirmed. So, hope motivates, fear freezes was an interesting insight that came from there. And then the agency created an award winning campaign called Life After Cancer, It Is Worth Living. And here they actually showed examples or case studies or testimonials of real life people who had got cancer, got treated, they fought and survived cancer and leading very, very normal lives. So this was a huge difference to the results. And finally, the Cancer Society said that, look, you guys just hold on now because we can't handle the walk-in for checkups. Okay. Um, the key question was, what is the real issue? So the real issue was not about education, but about motivation. The moment you say motivation, then the question started saying what can motivate them. And from there came up this idea of hope and not fear. And therefore the campaign emerged from there. What is the real issue actually involves looking at the issue or looking at the challenge or the problem at hand in a much deeper fashion. And you need to keep asking, but what is behind this? What is underneath the surface? It's almost like an iceberg. You can see the tip of the iceberg, but there's a huge piece below the surface. So you have to figure out ways and means of discovering what is below the surface. And we are definitely rewarded when you do this homework in a very, very systematic manner. Now, let me show you an interesting example. There are several organizations who are grappling with this issue of attrition. The initial question is always, how do we manage attrition? Now, the moment you say, how do we manage attrition, we get some standard kind of ideas which most of us are familiar with. In exploring this entire issue, somebody came down with a point of view saying that, look, our attrition is happening not because we're not looking after them well, it's because we're looking after them too well, but forgetting a fundamental issue. And the proposition was that the talented people, although were being paid extremely well, felt that they were not being valued. They were not being respected. They were not being given the freedom. They were not being given the decision making powers they would like to go commensurate with their growth. So this was some of the reasons why some very senior people left the organization, either to start on their own or join the competition. So how do we make our talented people feel valued came out of the quest for understanding what is the real issue. Now somebody went further and saying, but what is the real issue even further? They discovered that the reason why everybody is so concerned about attrition is much beyond the concept of holding on to good people. If attrition occurred, there was disruption, and it meant that client service to clients and customers suffered. So the big question or the real question could be that how can we actually deliver to clients in spite of attrition? I was at a workshop where this question was handled, and the group came out with some completely unexpected solutions to manage this issue. So at the end of the day, it might start by asking the question saying, how do we manage attrition? But it actually manages to tackle the real issue, which is about the disruption caused by attrition. So this is what the whole benefit of pursuing what is the real issue. One might ask, but why is this so important? If you don't tackle this, my submission is that it'll always come back to you like the boomerang or a bouncing check for that matter. Any problem which has been dealt with in a very superficial fashion crops up sometime again in the most unexpected, in the most inconvenient kind of situations. So it is worth our while to spend the additional time required to do this in-depth thinking and keep probing what is the real issue. However, we need to understand how can you do this probing? What are some of the tips that we can look at? I'm not going to too much of depth on this, but sharing with you some possibilities. How do we do this is to really look at the way we go through this. If you actually watched somebody getting a braid done this way, one thing leads to another and then it builds over the other to actually form this pattern. So in our effort to get into the what is the real issue, it is not merely uh, various little facts popping up and then we do something with it. It's actually moving logically from one thought to another, leading us up to something. So the process is a continuous one. The process is something which is building over the other and moving forward. One could be a root cause analysis. There are several people who are, especially from the quality movement, are very good at doing this root cause analysis. Engineers are very good at it. In manufacturing locations, this is done very effectively and a lot of problems are being solved through that basis. The other could be asking the right questions. Now, when we talk about asking the right questions, we are really talking about having productive conversations, not interrogations. We're not putting anybody on a Spanish Inquisition chair and making them feel really small and nervous. But ask interesting questions. Use the 5W1H, which is who, what, when, where, why, or how. If you use this intelligently, you can actually open very interesting doors. I have this favorite term called frequently unasked questions. If you ask the same standard questions, you'll get the same standard answers. For instance, if you ask somebody saying, um, who thinks that this issue is not important and why? Right? You might get a set of answers which are completely unexpected. The other question you could ask is, who could be the various people who are affected by this issue and how might they define this issue? Completely different set of things that can happen. Now, one of the skills that we must develop as managers is to ask fewer questions and get to the real issue as fast as possible. This is somewhat like the guess who game that we play in the party. Like we think of somebody's name from within the group there, and the rest of the group is asked to ask a few questions to come up with the answer. So, seasoned people, experienced people will start asking these questions, and they will be able to arrive at the real issue fairly fast compared to others who are still groping. So we must develop the skill. It can differentiate between the professional and the mediocre. The other way to arrive at what is the real issue is to understand what could be some of the barriers which will actually stop us from achieving our ambition or our goal, right? Suppose I am saying that what are the ways in which we can hold on to our talented people, then the question is what stops us from achieving this ambition? Then we'll actually brainstorm on putting down all the various issues and out of that arrive at maybe the top two or top three. Seasoned salesmen do this very well. They have a very important part of the sales process which is called overcoming objections. In overcoming objections, they understand who is the target person they are going to meet, and they know or they would have done their homework on what are the reasons why he will not agree to looking at us, or he will not allow us to quote for it, or he will not place an order with us. So once they attack that systematically, they hugely improve the chances of making a sale. By the same way, if you understand what are the barriers to achieving a goal or a dream, then and attacking the barrier by generating ideas, you would be able to achieve the results that you're looking for. So the barrier often actually tells us what is the real issue. Okay. The next thing is 100% listening. Now, when you are doing this discussion on what is the real issue, the person who is talking to you is likely to be talking about a variety of issues, various contexts, and things that happen. If he's in a good mood, he's going to be sharing a lot of interesting stories. So, listening is critical. And we had a vice chairman in Ogilvy in Mather years ago. He used to constantly say, "Shut up and listen." So, we need to really shut up and listen in the sense that we are so tempted to actually jump into the discussion and share our perspectives. But in this point in time, when you're digging deep and you're trying to really locate what is the real issue, listening is more important than talking. Listening is more important than sharing your perspectives. The right time for sharing your perspectives is really when you're uh, going back with your recommendations. Patience. It's quite possible that when the clients start talking or internal customers start talking, they are rambling. But you can actually help them become sharper and more focused with the right kind of questions that you'll be asking. So patience is not the ability to wait, but the ability to keep a good attitude while waiting. It's the same thing in terms of how you stay focused on the issue, give them the benefit of doubt and think through in terms of what is this leading up to. Okay. So the whole thing is about having a patient conversation. Finally, this requires perseverance. This is like digging for gold or it's mining for diamonds or whatever it is. Until you see it, you have to keep digging. Until you get the feeling, now I think we got somewhere, you need to keep persevering on this. Giving up is easy, persevering is difficult, but then you'll be duly rewarded. So at the end of the day, my suggestion is we know what is the benefit of discovering what is the real issue. And discovering the real issue is about understanding how to ask the right and smart questions, how to listen 100%, how to be patient, and how to persevere. Good luck with your hunting for the real issue. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. Bye.